Well, thank you for joining us here today. Could you start by giving us your name and your agency and department?
Sure. I'm Shauna Aragon. I've got the privilege of working with Northern Valley Catholic Social Services, which we call NVCSS for short around town. And I get to work in the Disaster Services Department.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about what the Disaster Services Department does.
Sure. We do pre-disaster, such as education, resiliency, training, and outreach. We also work during the response phase, and we're active in the recovery phase that's afterwards, which could be many, many years long. And we also work with the county VOADs as well.
Yeah, so a lot of different areas that you cover, number of counties.
Yeah, currently we work in primarily the northern 8 counties. So Tehama, Shasta, Siskiyou, Trinity, Butte, Lassen, Plumas, and Glenn counties.
Yeah, great coverage there. So as part of this conference, is there a goal or intention that you had, something you wanted to get out of this conference today?
Yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity to keep meeting people in the different counties and working with them and collaborating with them. Getting to see their whole person and not just a little picture in a Zoom has been wonderful. And it's nice to be able to bond, network, get cell phone numbers when we have the gift of time and ease. When an actual disaster is happening, it's very fast paced and everyone's juggling a lot of balls, and having that pre-established trust and rapport and collaboration really makes it for a more smooth coordination during a disaster.
Yeah. And so one of the things that your agency has really developed is disaster case management, because you've been doing it now for a number of years.
Yes.
And so can you kind of speak to that as to why that's so important?
Sure. Disaster case management deals on the recovery phase of a disaster. A disaster could be weeks or months long, let's say, like a wildfire might be going on. So the response phase is kind of limited in time, but the recovery phase can take years. It's 2024, and they are still recovering from the Paradise Fire, the Camp Fire in Paradise. And it takes a long time for smaller communities that are more remote. It takes time to have construction done, and it's there's only so many contractors in a small community, so it does take time. NVCSS does disaster case management, where we help guide survivors through the recovery process, and every recovery is different because it's their individual goals and their individual recovery plans. But we can help facilitate by connecting them to resources or with unmet needs roundtables or long-term recovery groups, especially those that are not insured or who are underinsured. It's really vital to keep a community healthy and vibrant by working around all the members of that community, even those that might be economically disadvantaged, and helping ensure that the community can recover fully and to avoid homelessness, which is often a side effect after a disaster happens.
Absolutely, for sure. Well, we appreciate all that you and your agency does in disaster and in coordinating with the VOAD. And so thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Take care.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you for joining me here today. Could you start by giving me your name and your agency and position, please?
My name is Kevin Cox, and I am the husband of the CEO and founder of the Hope Crisis Response Network.
Yes. Well, thank you for joining me here today, and I appreciate your participation in the conference.
You're welcome. Happy to do so.
So tell me, what was kind of the overarching goal, or a couple of the goals maybe, for the conference for this week?
What we were trying to accomplish was to help the local communities understand what is a true VOAD and how does a VOAD work. And we're trying to incorporate local emergency managers and incorporate local officials so that they truly understand how the VOAD is, because disasters start with the volunteer organizations responding. Then the government steps in and provides a little of assistance there, and then they end with the volunteers. And so trying to get the local EMAs to get familiar with their VOADs and help them to understand that we are the labor force for the community. We are their labor force. And it's, instead of hiring out to have certain things done, you can use a VOAD partner to step in and provide those services. The other thing to remember is that many of our volunteer organizations provide the financial assistance. When we look at a declared disaster versus an undeclared disaster, the undeclared disaster is pretty much funded 100% by the volunteer organizations. And so we're just trying to create strengthening and bridging the gaps with our local partners.
Right. And so just a variety of things that have gone on at the conferences, and you've seen a number of different people. What do you think, what's kind of your response that you're hearing from those attending?
Well, yeah, we're hearing it's been really good. The expectation has been well met with the information that we had published, and you've got 3 different specific communities that are different in the way that we've been able to approach this conference. In San Jose, Santa Clara area, we reached a really wide cultural demographic. And then in Sacramento, we hit a lot of the government personnel, and a lot of headquarters are there in Sacramento. And then we come up to Redding, and this is where in the state we've done most of the work, is in the northern part of the state with all these wildfires that we've been responding to. And so it's been really great. I think that the greatest achievement that I see not only is helping to further relationships and the networking, but I also see the importance. Case managers are getting a lot more connected, and that was a very pleasant surprise.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We
You're
appreciate
welcome.
you being here.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us today. Can you just start out by giving us your name and your position?
Yeah, I'm Theresa Azevedo, and I'm with United Way of Northern California. I'm the Disaster Services Operations Manager.
All right. Tell us a little bit about the Disaster Services Manager, what kind of services you provide to the community.
Yeah, so at United Way for disaster services, we offer a multitude of services, anything from emergency financial assistance to survivors as soon as they're evacuated. We'll deploy and offer gift cards to those impacted by disasters, down to financial assistance to those living in RVs and trailers, as well as small grants to help people refurnish their homes after a disaster, as well as sitting in an unmet needs roundtable to be able to help people rebuild their homes. We also fight for equity in disasters to help make disasters more equitable across the state. And we also participate in our local VOADs, which are voluntary organizations active in disaster.
Yes, so you're very, very involved, and you actually cover quite a few counties up here as well.
Yes, we cover 9 counties in Northern California, which equates to about the size of the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, lots of people, lots of counties. So,
Yeah.
All right. And what was one of your goals as part of this conference?
One of our goals was just to bring awareness of VOADs to our friends, our neighboring agencies, just the importance of VOADs, about how agencies can come together to prepare for disasters, respond to disasters, and just how much easier it is to be able to respond to disasters when we communicate and collaborate together. Many hands make light work. And when it comes to disasters and lack of resources, we can all step in together to help our communities.
Absolutely. And so you've also been a partner with Hope Crisis Response Network, and we appreciate that. Can you speak to that a little bit as well?
Yeah, so Hope Crisis Response Network has been a huge help to us in disasters, from providing shower trailers to mill fire survivors, as well as park fire survivors, to even providing a database, disaster case management database system called Vision Link. So we heavily rely and coordinate with Hope Crisis Response Network during disasters, not just through their agency themselves, but also through the state VOAD. So anytime something comes up, we immediately call Kevin and Valerie and ask for assistance to help fill those gaps in our 9 counties, but even just for neighboring counties outside of our region as well.
Yeah, well, we appreciate that. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
thank you for joining us here today.
Yes, my pleasure.
Could you begin by giving us your name and your agency?
Sure. I am Amy Mefford, Salvation Army Director of Disaster Services for Northern California.
And tell us a little bit about what your agency does in terms of disaster.
Yes, our agency does quite a lot during response. We will be the main agency that comes in and helps with feeding. We work alongside Red Cross, the local county shelters, and we're able to do emotional and spiritual care, mass care feeding, as well as distribution. We also assist with local response and recovery and can go into disaster recovery once a response is completed.
That's right. Earlier this week, your canteen did some work for us, and there's a lot of canteens in your area,
Yes.
right? So that's one of the great things that you provide. As part of this conference, was there a goal that you had in mind coming in for the week?
I know a lot of people on Zoom and I know a lot of people on email, and just meeting them face to face and actually talking to them in person was really wonderful. The networking, learning what the different counties are doing and how they're wanting to increase their VOAD is always exciting to me. So that was one goal I really loved, to be able to connect with our community partners.
Yeah, it's so much better than people like
Yes,
this, right?
yes.
So, okay, you've also worked with Hope Crisis Response
We have.
Network quite a bit. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, we have worked with Hope Crisis Network for many, many years. I have an amazing working relationship with Kevin Cox on our rebuild committee. He came in and advocated a lot for our Caldor survivors as we led DCM. Also love working the LACs with you guys. I will say that Vision Lead program is just a huge key success as we go into these local assistance centers to help the survivors. And so I just greatly appreciate all the back end work that a lot of people may not see that HCRN does with the Vision Link, the computers, the internet. You guys just come in and it is just phenomenal what you guys do behind the scenes that not everybody gets to see.
All right. Well, we appreciate you being here today. Thanks for the kind words.
Thank you. Love you guys.